Hello and good morning, everyone. Today is May the 12th, and it's another dreary, droopy Tuesday morning. Raining outside, nice and miserable looking from the inside looking out. So, on today's news, we're talking about employee retention strategies that work for small businesses. And on this article that was written a few weeks ago by a lady named Lisa Price on Small Biz Trends, talked about some things that are different, some things that are evolving in the ever-changing workplace, and especially around the idea of employee retention. And some things that she brought up was a few things of why people will quit their jobs here in today's market. So, one thing that I might preface this article, this was kind of on the front end of the Corona trend situation. And, I think throwing several tens of millions of people into the unemployment line might change a few of these things. Some people might be happy to have a job, so take that. No, just kidding. I think a lot of people will be happy to have a job, period. You think about coming out of the recession area, coming out of the depression area, a lot of people are like, yeah, man, my boss kept me on, and blah, 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 or I just got hired on. I don't want to go back to unemployment, and things like that. So, a lot of people might stick with the job for a little while, at least right now, through this situation. However, without further ado, getting into the article a little bit, the first thing that was, of course, brought up in employee retention was money. And that is something that I think is one of the, I don't want to say the least bit of, issues that come up as far as employee retention, but I do think that is something that matters. You hear about a lot of people that go to work at, say in the Oklahoma City area, Hobby Lobby or something like that, because they start out at this amount, and they have these benefits, or Amazon, they start out at this amount and they have these benefits. Money does matter. However, I think out of the amounts of, or the out of the scheme of things, that money is probably one of the least important in the job market as it sits right now, with the generation that we have now that we're talking about. And keep this in mind. I mean, I've only been hiring people for probably 6 or 7 years now, like really full-time, 6 or 7 years of being kind of in charge of what people make and being in charge of hiring and firing. So I don't come at this with 30 years of experience, as you can tell by looking at me, hopefully. So the first topic was money, and one thing that was brought up was that there's several examples of people quitting jobs because they were expecting a raise or they were looking forward to a raise and never got it. And the thing that was brought up was that the potential for somebody to get a raise is not necessarily something that is has to be a large number, but the idea and the appreciation and the excitement of getting a raise was what motivates people to get a raise, I guess you could say. So what I mean by that was there was an example brought up that a girl was passed up for a 3-month raise because she was going to, from her boss's perspective, she was going to get just twice as much of a raise at the 6-month mark. He was just waiting to give her that raise at that time, and she had been frustrated because she was anticipating a 3-month raise because she had heard that's kind of what the company does if you're doing good. And instead of getting the 3-month raise, they decided to just double her raise at the 6-month period for whatever reason. And the girl became frustrated and left the job for like a very minimal, higher paying job. And it goes on to say that she didn't know that she was doing good in the job. She thought maybe they weren't getting along good. They didn't appreciate her, blah, blah, blah. And so this is why I say money is not necessarily the biggest issue in my opinion, because I think the thing that was lacking there was a clear communication about, am I appreciated in this job? Am I doing a good job for this company? And that's what she was so foggy about. And the next thing in the article is showing appreciation, recognition, and connection. This is something that I have learned to get a lot better at in the last few years. I think this was something that when you look at the your love languages or whatever that or your, what do they call it, your assessment test or whatever it might be, that people have different things that appeal to them. And I think some gifts appeal to some people. Time off appeals to some people. I think that money appeals to some people, and recognition appeals to some people. It blows my mind that somebody would rather have a thank you than a $20 or, I really appreciate what you're doing for us, type of 10-15 minute conversation than $20 or $30. I would rather you don't have to tell me thank you. You show me thank yous with green dollar bills. That's the way I am. But people do put an importance on knowing what their boss is thinking, knowing what the company is thinking. Different people have different ways of communication, and this is one thing that I think a manager has to learn to be good at, is figuring out who ticks in what ways. The people that put an emphasis on money and that's all they care about and that's what they want in a job, honor that with those money, and vice versa with people with recognition. You got to have more regular conversations around, I appreciate you coming in on your day off. I appreciate this. I appreciate that. And of course, people with money, this isn't a total one-sided deal, but she goes on to cite, the author of this article goes on to cite several, I guess you could say, things that she has seen that talk about how, showing recognition and having recognition in the workplaces is very important to people. And not only that, but how an employee, she goes on to in the article or in the paragraph, with how you started, how that employee fits in with future plans and what your hopes are for the future. These same people that like recognition, like to talk about things, they want to know, what the future looks like. They want to know what you're thinking, and that's the importance of that. And finally, the last couple things that are talked about are flexibility, benefits, health insurance, and then finally opportunity for growth. I think that flexibility is something that we have noticed here in the last, couple years of, in a retail environment, so much different than an office environment or a sales environment or whatever it might be. In a lot of businesses, they can have extreme flexibility because if something is not being done, it is okay for certain things to wait or whatever it might be, or other people can pick up the slack. But in a retail environment, when you are in the reaction business of waiting on somebody to walk into a retail store, whether it be a restaurant or, whatever it is, when you're waiting on somebody to walk in and give you business, you cannot give all of your employees time off at the exact same time, of course. And really, in a small business with, fewer than 10 people, that is almost impossible to give extended amounts of time off, whether it's paid or unpaid. It cripples a business. So what we have learned is that people really like time off, whether it's, a day off a week, 2 days off a week, 3 days off a week. There is a lot of employees that we have that want those days off and are paid by the hour, so when they're off, they're not making money. And we have noticed that is important to a lot of people. Now, again, this goes back to different people like different things, but what we have done is we have almost hired up so many, part-timers or people that don't necessarily need those 20 to 30 to 35 hour people, and we have max capacity those type of people. And we give preference to, on like a schedule or something like that, we give preference to the people that seem like they put an emphasis on money. So those people that are like, I need this much money, that are concerned about how much they make, this goes back to knowing your people. You have to know which ones care about which things. But the people that care about money, we give them preference to, you get 40 hours a week every week, you get 35 hours a week every week. And the people that are more worried about, I need this day off to go to this family function, I need this day off to go to this, I need this day off to go to this, those people are kind of last on the schedule. So it's like, hey, such and such and you both need are available every day this week, but one of you usually has something to do. So we have learned to kind of prioritize people's hours in the front, and then in the back end, just kind of be flexible in that sense. So, in a retail environment or a restaurant or whatever it might be, you don't have the extreme ability to be super flexible, even with hourly employees, but you do have the ability to hire more of them and make them kind of battle for hours, as you might kind of think about it. So those are the last part of the article was kind of downer. I thought it talked about how benefits are a big deal, and I thought that kind of went into money. Benefits are a big deal to certain people, and how maybe you offering benefits isn't necessarily it. Maybe if you don't offer any benefits, that you help people to take advantage of other benefits, whether that be invite a health insurance professional in to help them get health insurance, whether you're paying for it or not. So, I thought that was kind of in the same vein as money. That matters to some people they don't care. And then lastly, it talked about having fun. And I think in that vein of having fun, in that vein of knowing your employees, in that vein of knowing who wants a certain amount of money and who doesn't care necessarily, as much, I think that it's all just hard work, in the sense of, if you're not trying to make all of your employees happy, if you're not trying to learn what motivates all of your employees, if you're not trying or working at it, that you're not going to have a successful business. And I think that that's kind of the punchline of all of this is, you have to accept the fact, or at least I've understood that, I think, I have come to the realization in the last few years that you have to accept the fact of, if you want to build a large business and have some sort of sustainable large business, it revolves around employees. Name a business that is not of some sort of, if you're saying, oh, well, I'll just outsource everything, you have to work with the vendors that you work with. So in no way is there a possibility that you can build a very large, sustainable business. Now, there's some businesses that do, $20 million with 3 people. There's some businesses that do $2 million and they have 300 employees. I understand that there's different businesses that have different amounts or levels or whatever of employees, but the people that have, a big business, you have to have employees. And so when you have to have employees, you have to accept the fact that you are going to have to deal with these employee issues. You're going to have to deal with all kinds of things with employees. And so you have to put in the work. So thank you for watching today's article, today's update, whatever you want to call it, around employees. Please give me your thoughts and your opinions on this matter. Thank you for watching.